The year is 1995. The place is Turkey. Beneath the surface of the state, hidden networks in the military and security services are pulling strings. They call it derin devlet, the deep state. They operate outside the law, orchestrating events from the shadows. For years, that phrase was a diagnosis for a political sickness happening somewhere else. But then it escaped. It crossed oceans and political divides until it landed right here, in the heart of American politics, describing a hidden war for the soul of the nation.
After the 2016 US election, the phrase deep state exploded into the mainstream. It became shorthand for a supposed cabal of unelected bureaucrats and intelligence operatives secretly working to thwart the president.
Wait, that's what I thought it meant. The secret guys behind the curtain who really run things. The ones who decide the Wi-Fi password for the White House.
That's the modern partisan definition. But the term's American life didn't start on the political right at all. It was popularized decades earlier by a left-wing UC Berkeley professor, Peter Dale Scott.
And he wasn't talking about sabotaging a specific president. For Scott, the deep state was about the unaccountable power that comes with government secrecy, the permanent structures that enable covert operations and things like political assassinations.
Which leaves us with the central question: is the deep state a real conspiracy of a shadow government, a political smear against civil servants, or simply the mundane reality of a 2.2 million person federal bureaucracy that never really changes? Let's start with the conspiratorial view. It defines the deep state as a powerful unelected network of officials spanning intelligence agencies, finance, and major industries. The idea is they secretly manipulate government policy, no matter who you vote for.
So, the Illuminati. But with a government pension plan and better dental. I get it.
But that definition is intentionally vague. Who are these people specifically? The theory always talks about a network, but rarely provides a clear, verifiable structure for it.
The official mainstream view counters that completely. It argues the deep state is simply the federal civil service. We're talking about 2.2 million nonpartisan professionals who make sure the government actually functions day to day.
Wait, the person at the DMV, who looks like they died 3 weeks ago but nobody told them. They're in on it. The slow service is a psychological operation.
That's the point, Casey. It's not a plot. It's just a massive organization. The mainstream view distinguishes between professional continuity and a secret cabal. One is boring but necessary. The other is a conspiracy.
But the concept does have a real-world precedent, which makes it so compelling. The original Turkish derin devlet was a verifiable network. It was implicated in assassinations and even military coups, all to enforce a specific, hardline secular ideology outside the law.
Okay, hold on. So there's a version of this that was real, with receipts. That's a lot more unsettling than a guy at the DMV.
Exactly. The Turkish deep state had a body count when Peter Dale Scott first applied the term in the US. That's the kind of unaccountable power he was trying to describe. His focus wasn't on partisan squabbles.
He was trying to build a framework for understanding events like the JFK assassination or Watergate. He theorized a dual state, the public government you see, and a hidden national security hierarchy that operates by its own rules.
So there is the government that gets elected. And then there is the government that has the security clearance that lets them ignore the elected government. Got it.
But after 2016, the term was politically rebranded. It became a catch-all for any kind of bureaucratic resistance to the Trump administration.
Unfavorable media coverage, policy disagreements, anonymous leaks. Suddenly, it was all proof of the deep state at work. It wasn't about structural analysis anymore, it was about loyalty. So let's look at the evidence. Proponents of the theory almost always start with the real documented history of overreach by US intelligence agencies. It's not a baseless fear.
And there are specific examples. We have FBI documents from 1970 where the Bureau investigated student protesters at Kent State. The justification in the file. One student admitted to vandalism because he was, quote, angered that Nixon had entered Cambodia.
So if you were mad at the government in 1970, the FBI opened a manila folder on you. Got it. That's a lot of folders.
Fast forward to the Trump administration. The constant stream of anonymous leaks from inside the government was presented as primary evidence of a coordinated effort by career bureaucrats to subvert a democratically elected president.
And to be fair, the sheer volume of leaks was unprecedented. The question is whether it was a coordinated effort or thousands of individuals acting on their own conscience or agenda. The theory requires a conductor, not just a chaotic orchestra.
There is also a core structural argument that doesn't require secret oaths, just bureaucracy. The idea is that modern government is so complex, it has to delegate immense power to bureaucratic agents. Over time, that creates a permanent, independent power base that's insulated from political leadership.
So the real power isn't the president, it's the guy who's been in charge of ordering paper clips for 40 years, because he's the only one who knows the vendor password. That, I believe.
However, that brings us to the main critique. Many of these deep state claims completely lack empirical rigor. They rely on anecdotes and conflate legitimate, lawful bureaucratic resistance, or even simple incompetence, with a clandestine plot.
Right. Is the memo missing because of a conspiracy, or because Dave spilled coffee on the only copy and is too scared to tell his boss?
And that's where it becomes a political tactic. The accusation itself is the weapon. Labeling career civil servants as a deep state is a powerful way to delegitimize any policy disagreement.
It reframes professional governance as partisan opposition. If an expert at the EPA says a new policy will be bad for the environment, you don't have to argue with their science. You just say, of course they'd say that. They're the deep state.
And this debate isn't just theoretical anymore. There is a concrete proposal on the table called Schedule F. It's designed to solve the deep state problem by reclassifying up to 50,000 senior federal employees, which would strip them of their job protections.
So, a corporate reorg but for the government. The org chart is about to get real spicy.
Reorg is a gentle way to put it. Stripping job protections means they can be fired at will by the president. It's a direct assault on the idea of a permanent, nonpartisan civil service.
Supporters, including Donald Trump, argue that's exactly the point. They say Schedule F is necessary to demolish the deep state and restore accountability, making bureaucrats answerable to the elected administration.
Opponents, on the other hand, warn it would be a disaster for democracy. They argue it would destroy the nonpartisan civil service and allow a president to replace experts with political loyalists, no matter how unqualified.
So one side says it's pest control, the other says you're burning down the house to get a spider.
And this has moved way beyond fringe theory. In late 2024, figures like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy were publicly discussing how they would reform, or just dismantle, the civil service.
It became a mainstream policy debate, no longer a conspiracy whispered online, but a platform discussed openly by some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the country.
When billionaires start talking about government efficiency, I check my wallet, and then I check to see if my toaster is running for office.
Okay, let's separate the solid ground from the swamp. Fact number 1, the original term, derin devlet, absolutely described a real thing in Turkey. There was a verifiable clandestine network within the state.
That's right. The historical precedent for the concept is solid. It wasn't born from pure fantasy. It was an attempt to name a real and violent political phenomenon.
So, we've confirmed that a deep state can exist. That's not exactly comforting.
Fact number 2, the United States federal government employs approximately 2.2 million civilian workers. That is a massive permanent bureaucracy that continues to function regardless of who wins an election.
And this is what many people, especially critics of the conspiracy theory, would call the real deep state. Not a secret cabal, but the simple structural inertia of a massive institution designed for continuity.
Fact number 3, and this is the one that fuels the entire fire: U.S. government agencies have a documented multi-decade history of engaging in covert, sometimes illegal operations that were hidden from the public and even other parts of the government.
That's not speculation, that's historical fact. From COINTELPRO to MK Ultra, the precedent for secret government action is well established. It's the known unknown that makes the bigger theory feel plausible.
So what you're saying is, we know for a fact they've had secret, evil plans before. We just don't know if they're any good at them now.
Which brings us to the biggest piece of speculation. The idea of a single, coordinated, self-aware shadow government pulling all the strings remains completely unproven. It's a huge leap from agencies have secrets to a secret committee runs the world.
There is no empirical evidence, no documents, no whistleblowers, no smoking gun that points to a unified cabal. The theory relies on connecting disparate events and assuming a single conductor for a very chaotic orchestra.
Frankly, I'm more inclined to believe in government incompetence than competence. A perfectly executed, decades-long silent coup. Have you seen them try to renew a driver's license?
Confirmed, the phrase deep state is now a powerful political smear. It's used by all sides to delegitimize opposition and reframe a policy disagreement as a sinister conspiracy.
It's an incredibly effective tool for shutting down debate. You don't have to engage with an expert's argument if you can just label them part of the conspiracy. It transforms them from a public servant into an enemy of the people.
It's the political version of telling the referee they're biased because your team is losing. It's not a strategy. It's a tantrum.
And finally, confirmed, the battle over Schedule F is a very real, very high-stakes political fight. This isn't a theory. It's a policy proposal that represents the real-world collision of these two worldviews.
The entire debate over the nature of the federal bureaucracy, its power and its loyalties is crystallized in that one seemingly boring administrative proposal. It's where the conspiracy theory hits the pavement of actual governance. So why does this theory have such a grip on the public imagination? Because it springs from that kernel of truth we just talked about. The excesses of state secrecy.
Exactly. When a government operates with a high degree of classification and engages in documented covert operations, it creates a void of information. And that void is inevitably filled with cynicism and suspicion.
If you know someone keeps secrets, you're never going to believe they're just hiding a surprise party for you. You're going to assume it's something much, much worse.
The theory also works because it provides a simple villain. It's psychologically more satisfying to blame a secret committee for complex problems like economic inequality or political gridlock than it is to grapple with messy systemic issues that have no easy answer.
It replaces 100 confusing variables with a single, personified enemy. You don't have to understand economics if you can just blame a cabal of bankers meeting in secret.
It's easier to be mad at a specific guy named Steve from the deep state than it is to be mad at macroeconomic trends. You can't punch a trend.
And that anger feeds on itself. The theory creates a feedback loop of distrust. We saw it in the Kent State files. The government's actions in Cambodia provoked citizen anger,
which then provoked government surveillance of those citizens, which, when revealed, only deepens the public's distrust of the government. Each side's reaction confirms the other's worst suspicions.
So the government gets paranoid about its citizens, and the citizens get paranoid about the government, and everyone just gets more paranoid forever. Sounds sustainable.
Ultimately, the deep state is a narrative about control. In a chaotic and unpredictable world, it tells a story comforting to some, terrifying to others, that someone, somewhere, is secretly in charge of it all.
It's the ultimate answer to the question, who's driving? Even if the answer is sinister, at least it's an answer. It suggests there is a plan, a structure beneath the noise of daily events.
Look, if trying to figure out who's actually in charge is your thing, you're in the right place. We do this every week. Subscribe and hit the bell, and we'll try to make sense of the chaos together.
In the end, the line between a professional, permanent civil service and an unaccountable shadow government is blurry. It's maybe the blurriest line in modern politics.
Whether you see dedicated public servants working for continuity or a sinister cabal thwarting democracy, depends almost entirely on how much you trust our institutions to begin with.
So, either it's a conspiracy or the government is just like that. I'm not sure which is scarier.
Next week, we're going down a rabbit hole that starts in your own medicine cabinet, examining the claims of a global conspiracy run by Big Pharma. Don't miss it.
Conspiracy Examined is a production of
The guys who are definitely not in your toaster? Probably.